And I'll start with this one. I think I talked a little bit about it. We had Mark Palmer talk to us. Oh, it was last year, I guess, last fall. And he poo-pooed one of my favorite finishes, which is white on poly. And I still like it. I like it because this is oak, and it is looks very similar if I put walnut oil on it. Basically, will look the same. And another reason why I like white on poly is a very stable polish. Most of the stuff I make, I sell. So I want to sell somebody something that in 5-10 years, it's going to basically look the same as it did when I sold it. So that's one of the reasons why I like that finish. I really don't have anything more to say about it. I have been trying, though. I know Mark said he liked spraying. And I hadn't done that very much. This bowl, another finish I like to use, like on yarn bowls and stuff, is an acrylic finish. Usually, most times, I start with a water-based finish and try to do the final coat best I can. But then when he talked about using spray, I decided to try that myself, and it does. You get a much more uniform appearing exterior.
Was that the same finish that you sprayed?
It
Well,
The
almost.
first 4 or 5 coats were water-based acrylic. This is a oil base or
Okay. Okay.
acrylic. Well, I guess it's a they're enamel.
Okay.
But I'm kind of pleased with it. I'm going to keep exploring that option. One thing I'm hoping to hear from somebody here tonight is there anybody that uses an airbrush to apply finishes? I'd like to hear that because a couple years ago, I picked up a very nice airbrush setup at the state sale and I haven't used it. And I'd like to maybe try and use it to do that. Somebody else is trying that.
Big fan of shellac and Danish oil. And this piece here that I did is shellac. And the nice part about it, I'm not sure there's a lot to say there yet. But I make furniture and I do French polishing on it. And if you've ever seen, it's literally thousands and thousands of figure 8 coats on it. And it dries that fast. As you're going across, it's dry back there because you're patting it on with a very, very, very dilute shellac solution and a lot of alcohol. Put it in a pad, put a little mineral oil on it, and you can just brush it. So by the time you get from here to here, it's dry, and you can start along with it. So thousands of coats in and out. And it's even nicer on the blade because while the thing is spinning, as long as you keep moving the pad, it just adds more and more coats. So that's one of the things I like about it. The other nice thing about it, if you screw something up on it, the alcohol that's in the pad dissolves the prior layer, and it just smooths out again. And then what happens after a while if you put too many coats on is you got to use some 4-0 steel wool, and it'll just flatten out again. And even if you went all the way down through wood, it doesn't matter because you can put on more coats again and dissolve and all things. So shellac is nice. I like shellac. The other thing I like about shellac is this is a good example of it is if you use it as a wash coat, you take a very, very dilute solution of shellac, and you put it on the wood first. This is walnut, and then you put a finish on it. So this is wash coat of shellac, and then Danish oil on. It looks pretty, you get a pretty nice green on there. This is just Danish oil, no wash coat of shellac. And you see how muddled it gets. You can hardly see the fingers kind of looking off. So what I like to do is do a little wash coat first. It kind of absorbs into the wood, absorbs into the pores, and then when you put the next coating on, it doesn't absorb so deep and it doesn't get as muddled.
So is that considered just like sanding sealer?
It's the same thing. I don't buy the sanding seal because it's actually more expensive than a can of shellac. I buy a can of shellac, a can of alcohol, diluted, and I get sanding seal up like that. Because when you're diluting it, it makes no sense. So yeah, it's the same thing as a sanding seal. It's just the washing. Anyway, it's back there. You can just see on the 2 front facing cases the difference between that bowl. looks and the fittings so nice and cool.
Have you ever tried, getting the shellac crystals and then dissolving them yourself and going up?
I have, I got into a phase for that for a while. They're good for about 3 years. Then it doesn't make a difference how long you keep it in alcohol. It's just never going to dissolve. So I've tried that too, but you know, the easiest thing to do is just go buy a new can of the stuff. If you want to do a wash coat or a sanding seal or whatever, just dilute it. And, it's pretty inexpensive.
Okay,
Either.
okay.
But I've tried both.
A couple of questions, waxed, unwaxed, shellac.
I'm using unwaxed shellac when I'm using the wash coat. And when I say unwaxed shellac, here's what I do. I buy a can of shellac. And if you don't shake it around too much, the wax will settle to the bottom. And I take a little squeegee thing and I take off what's on the top and it's unwaxed. The rest at the bottom is, you'll see it, it's a big white cloud at the bottom. Right? So it's always one can. It's pretty easy. And
You can buy it that way too, though.
you can buy
right?
it, but it costs more.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so why pay for it, you know? And the only reason I do it that way is not because I'm a cheapskate, it's just that you don't use a lot of it, so you wind up throwing it away every 3 years and buy another can. No use buying 5 cans and throwing it away every 3 years, so that's my thing, yeah.
Second question, I used to make a lot of furniture with cherry, which when you stain it, blotches.
Exactly,
So it's another way to deal with blotches.
absolutely. In fact, I'm just finishing a cherry chest of drawers, do the same thing, do that wash coat on it, and it'll stop the blotching. And, yeah.
And you can use that under any finish, right?
Yeah, and you can use it under any finish, that's right, so when you're all done with that, if you want to put another finish on it, because I'll put DH oil on top of it, like I did on there, and just keep putting DH oil, so it's very forgiving in terms of mixing finishes on it. Put the black down first and then other stuff on top of it.
I've experimented with other kind of finishes over my years, from doing stained furniture that I made, and they wanted a really dark color. And in order to keep it from being splotchy, you make that seal with shellac,
So I get wash coat shellac.
the wash coat, and that would fix the color staying on. But in the meantime, making these bowls of all different sizes and shapes, I found that I had tried an experiment with simple beeswax. I took a block of beeswax and put it on the bowl while I was spinning. The heat the beeswax, melted in. However, walking through the footsteps here, I found a product that is made with beeswax, then with some kind of a fluid, probably shellac or some kind of oil.
I've used mineral
Mineral oil,
heat it.
but this stuff on the shelf, if I may, is what I use. This is the product that I pull off the shelf. So it's made with beeswax, orange oil, and some kind of fluid. This is the stuff I just put on with paper towel and let it dry, but a couple of overnight. That makes it simple.
Yours, the
And then
label
you
on it.
don't have, I'm sorry.
The label on your.
Can you look at that?
Or the label off the shelf and like that.
You always do a closed session, maybe?
So,
Like spinning.
wave and spinning, very slow spinning.
What's the durability on that?
Another finish that I like that's simple. This is, don't look at the object, that's another one. But I'm trying to make a canister showed by Mike Mahoney. I don't know if you know Mike Mahoney. He's a big furniture maker. Not furniture.
Oh,
Canister thing. But with thousands of bowls. He makes thousands of bowls for other workmen. Imagine that. His factory buys wood, trail, walls. It's forklift, they're looking more, shipments all the same. He's got hundreds of bowls at any one time. So anyway, his recipe is polyurethane, move one to some kind of a solution. I use turpentine. I suppose mineral spirits would be, he suggested mineral spirits. I didn't have any at the time, so I used turpentine. The only difference in that mix would be that the turpentine would dry a little faster. And if you're using a brush, the brush strokes may show up quicker. Other than that, it's plain old turpentine.
Now, you apply this with a rag or
It's brush
brush?
and wipe it off with that.
Use it to wipe it off.
A brush, or sometimes I use a sponge.
Okay.
Yes,
Three parts poly?
it goes with 3 to 4 coats, and it only has one like keep it simple, like that. Don't go into
Bob, did you say 3-part poly and 1-part?
3-part poly and 1 part either turpentine or mineral spirits.
It's kind of like the white on policy that you buy, same thing.
White polyurethane and polyurethane.
Yeah, white bond poly, you'd be cheaper to buy your polyurethane and dilute it. It's that, yeah.
Absolutely.
I started using this rock hard varnish when I did dining room table. And I actually made a couple of tabletops and got it down to look like in the bottom. And took out a lot of sanding, a lot of wet sanding, but I like the depth that it gives you and on the table. And I started using it on some of the things I was making, and I put it on this. The inside, for some reason, it just kept soaking it up, but then it would run off and pull in the bottom. So I haven't figured out how to finish the inside yet. It still needs a little work. But you know, when you look at it, you just get that almost, you know, the depth that you look at it, and that's what I really like about it. So it's a short oil varnish, and if you want something you can polish, you want a short oil varnish, not a long oil. And this is, they have it here. It was originally rock hard tabletop varnish that I use. It was originally made by Balin and now Mohawk Rock. So you get it here. And I mean, I just like the way it looks. You don't use it on it. Don't use it on everything, but I really do like the way it came out on this one. But it's a lot of work. I had a lot of rounds. So I just had, and I didn't do it on the lathe. I already had cut, so I had this one. I have a little 3-inch pneumatic sander and have a little foam pad and just moving it around, turning the thing. So, what's your I went to the finest that I had, which is 3,000. I need to find, I'd like to figure out how to go even lower, but then I put a coat of rinse on plastic. And that kind of made it look better. But yeah, so I mean, it's just one, I don't use it for everything, but I mean, for certain things I like to use it. Again, for if you're doing a tabletop, it really can give you, I have to make furniture and make it dining room.
I like to add something to the tabletop and use some polyurethane. When I started, there was either 2 finishes. There was either glossy or semi-gloss. Now they've added 2 other, there's a satin and there's the eggshell.
Starting to gloss.
Unbelievable.
All you need is glossing. Then you rub it out to whatever finish you want. Right.
But you know, I did use gloss on a couple of tabletops, and the scratches show up faster. So I moved to a satin finish.
Well, you could rub that gloss out to whatever finish you want to do.
Oh, yeah, of course.
That's the key. That's the key. What I've always read is use gloss. The other stuff is just crap they throw in.
Right.
And you don't need that crap in there. Just rub it to the finish you want. The scratch count on it is how it reflects light. So gloss before it's still.
I love carnauba wax. Keep your fingerprints off of it. Don't take it out in the rain. Rebuff it periodically. But it goes on so simple. And if you see some sanding marks that you missed, then wash it off, sand it again, go back to the buffing wheel. So many other finishes I've tried, you gotta get the finish off if you're going back after sanding marks that you missed. They happen when I take a piece out of the shop and walk out in the sunlight and say, ooh, didn't see that before. So anyway, carnivore what? Is it carnivore or carnova? Carnivore. It's still in carnova.
Where you come from?
I didn't know, so I just call it what I've been told it was. So that is my favorite finish.
Look, Dan, do you dissolve the carnivore wax in something before?
I use a bio buffing system.
Okay, so it's kind of melted in.
Yeah, the heat from the buffing wheel applies it to the surface. And you can get too much on it, and the heat buffing, it'll go away.
You use the coarse material first before you could do the middle.
Yes, you're talking about sanding pieces, sanded this to 600, and, then the triple E, take that on down, and the white diamond takes the triple E off, I guess, I don't know if it does anymore, and then apply the wax.
When you're doing that, what speed do you run that wheel at?
Pretty fast.
Okay.
But I'd have to check, it's on my old record lathe,
Okay.
for the most part.
Is that wood?
Sure. And, this came from, Captain Harris, month and a half, or 2 months ago. Way back, and it's been drying and shrinking and doing pretty good so far. Still got the crack that, we'll see. We'll see. It's shrunk up some. We'll see if it continues to close. So anyway, 600 on the outside, 150 on the inside. So that's my favorite, except when it's not. Another piece I wasn't going to bring in because we were finished, and Dave and I had similar thoughts. That is mineral oil, one coat so far. I have trouble with oils, getting them to dry. Mineral oil, yeah, it might leave a little bit behind, but eventually it soaks on in, and you can buff that up pretty good. Non-hardening, but it works for me. And keeps the ring on. Well, let's see if we can get this finished by the next meeting. Another piece of Captain Harris's wood.
I have three favorite finishes for 3 different applications. One I've already mentioned. The oil, I like the oil urethane, general finish oil urethane. Any piece that I'm making that I know is going to be used or washed, I always use oil urethane. I put 3 coats on. First 2 coats with a paper towel, the 3rd coat with a piece of cotton cloth. I cut up all the t-shirts because the cotton will give you the best finish on the last coat. What I do though, years ago, before I got the lathe I have now, I would put it on liberally, and I would literally stand at my lathe for 20 to 30 minutes, and I would very slowly manually turn the lathe. And what it does is it doesn't allow any sagging. And I'm using the gravity to my benefit. It's flowing out the urethane and giving me an absolutely perfect finish. No runs, no blemishes, no thick spots, no dry spots, and nothing. After 3 coats, now I have a lathe that it'll spin 5 or 10 RPM. So I put the stuff on literally, and I walk away for 20 or 30 minutes. But if you put the urethane on and manually spin the lathe, you put this much time into a piece. Why not put a little more time into the finish? All you got to do is get a skin to develop over it.
And by turning it, if any dust particulates come down, you're actually starting a very slow rotation of air around it too, and the particulate will come and go right around it. So microscopically, you can see it, but it doesn't settle on the finish. So I use general finish oil urethane on anything that's gonna be soap and water or used. That's one finish. One that's already been mentioned, the Beal buffing system. I use the Beal buffing system generally in the fall and winter. My wife will come to me and say, gee, we're gonna go such and such, can you make a platter for some cookings or something? And I'll go out and, you can turn a platter in an hour, hour and a half, and you use the Beal buffing system. And if you go through all three of the Tripoli, the white diamond, and the carnauba, although in dark woods you want to avoid the white diamond because it captures in the grain, and in the dark light woods you want to not use the Tripoli because the dark will go in the grain. But if you liberally put on the carnauba wax when you're done, we've got platters that are 10 years old and they still shine. But you wipe them off. You don't submerge them into soap and water. So I like that. Third, if I'm going to make something of multiple pieces that I want to finish before assembly, or if I'm making something that's got a lot of intricacy to it, like a dainty finial on a Christmas ornament or something, that's when I'll use spray lacquer. And I think I mentioned it before, I like the Mohawk high solids lacquer because it's thicker, it's got more lacquer in it than solvent, and it builds up much faster. So those are my three favorites. You asked a question though about using an airbrush. The only time I use an airbrush, and I've done it successfully, when I used to turn a lot of figured woods and use a lot of aniline dyes, and I would apply the dyes and make basically rainbow on these pieces. And if you put the wrong finish on, you can actually pull the dye. So what I did is I took the water-based acrylic, thinned it down 10%, put it through my airbrush, put multiple coats on, 5 or 6 coats on, before I started sanding. Because if you sand through and you touch the dye, you ruin the piece. So that's what I used. Okay.
At Ace Hardware, a can of Minwax acrylic, water-based acrylic.
And that works. Okay,
Yeah.
that's what I used it. I was having problems with.
Yeah,
Okay.
I used it on,
Okay.
and I sanded between coats, got the runs out of it and all that, and then did the spray on the final.
Did you thin that out when you used it?
I did not thin it out.
Okay.
I know the wood turners finish, when it first came out, was very liquid. And then they changed the formula at some point, recently, last year or so, to it's very similar, it's thicker and similar to the stuff that comes in the can. And, I don't know, I was kind of torn between the two. I kind of liked the thin one because you could build it up in layers. It just went on there. I don't think.
I'll tell you, I made some cups at the fair last year, and I put CA glue on them. And maybe I just got lucky, but they have and I went through the steps. It was, there's a video came out from AAW. They sent around about 1.5 years ago about putting CA glue on. And so you start with the thin, and then you move to the medium. And I never got past the medium, but it looks like a glass.
Sort of new, so I haven't done too many things.
Well, that's good.
It's usually white on poly, or I've done homemade mineral oil and beeswax. And I've noticed the mineral and beeswax gives it a finish so that it still looks like wood. It's not too shiny, too glassy. But if I wanted something really glossy, then I'd go with the white on poly. So that's the two.
The one thing I'll point out, when I use white on poly, I know it's going to change color. It's a little darker than white on poly. And that's why when I use the water-based acrylics, there's almost no color change.
Same way with lacquer, that'll do the same thing too, keep it
That's one
light.
nice thing about it. Another thing, if you, want to get applicators, Sherwin Williams sells these bags, rag bags, and they're wash t-shirts, cut up. And they're almost, I can't say to guarantee they're great, but they're real great for applying these fixtures. Cut them up in squares. You sell them in a big bag. But it's not too expensive, so that's a good way to get a bunch of applicators.
That Sherwin-Williams has a.
Sherwin Williams, yeah. Don't mind that. Well, I guess that's
Thanks,
call
y'all.
it a wrap. I think this worked pretty well.
Yep.